I never thought a single Instagram photo could destroy my life until I saw my husband in a white tuxedo, kissing another bride. That moment is etched in my memory like an open wound. I was sitting on my couch in sweatpants, scrolling mindlessly through social media after a long day. My husband, Connor, had just texted me that his business trip was going well and he'd probably be out of state for a couple more days. He mentioned something about important clients in Texas. He always had a new project brewing, and I believed him without question. Why wouldn't I? We'd been married 3 years, shared the same Netflix account, the same closet, the same bed. I had no reason to suspect he was building a second life halfway across the country. But that night, my phone pinged with a post from a mutual friend, Christine. She's one of those acquaintances who love tagging everyone in her travel and party pics. I tapped on the notification, expecting to see maybe a group dinner or a random birthday celebration. Instead, my screen filled with images from a small wedding ceremony on a beach. The lighting was dreamy, the waves crashing in the background. I froze. The groom was Connor. I'd know that confident grin and broad shoulders anywhere. He was wearing a crisp white tuxedo, standing beneath an arch of flowers. Beside him, wearing a flowing lace gown, was a woman I'd never seen before in my life. Christine's caption read something like, "Congrats to the happy couple. So thrilled I could witness their special day. Surprise wedding beat ceremony newlyweds." My heart nearly stopped. My stomach twisted into knots. My thoughts ran wild. Was this some kind of prank? A weird photo shoot? I zoomed in on the picture, my hands trembling. It was undeniably Connor, right down to the small freckle on his cheek. And the date stamp on the photo was from earlier that same day. My mind screamed for an explanation, but none came. I felt physically ill, like someone had just pulled the rug out from under my entire existence. My name is Tessa. I'm 29, a dental hygienist with a cozy apartment in downtown Seattle, a supportive circle of friends, and up until that moment, what I thought was a rock-solid marriage. Connor was my everything, my best friend, my travel buddy, the guy who'd binge-watch cheesy shows with me until 2 a.m. I admired him for his drive, his ambition. He ran a small construction consulting firm, traveling often to meet clients. Sure, sometimes I missed him when he was gone, but I never doubted his fidelity. Looking back now, I can recall little red flags, like how he guarded his phone more lately, or how he seemed distant at times. But at the time, I chalked it up to work stress. You never think your spouse is living a double life. After the initial shock, I did something I never thought I'd do. I screenshot the photo, sent it to my best friend Daria with the message, "What the actual hell?" Then I sat there, legs curled under me, phone in my sweaty palm, waiting for a reply. My heart pounded like I'd just run a marathon. Daria called me immediately. I answered, my throat so tight I could barely speak. "Tell me this is some messed up dream," I croaked. She was silent for a moment, then said in a hushed tone, "Tessa, oh my God, are you sure that's Connor? I mean, it can't be, this is insane." I let out a shaky laugh, which immediately turned into a sob. "Of course it's him. Look at his face. You can see the scar on his chin from that skiing accident." Daria breathed heavily into the phone. "This is, oh my God, so what are you going to do?" I stared at the photo again, nausea churning in my gut. I don't know. He told me he was in Texas for work. This is obviously a beach, maybe Florida or California. Where is this wedding happening? Christine's post didn't specify a location, just a generic beach wedding vibes. I felt a wave of panic. Where was my husband? How long had he planned this? Did he think I'd never find out? "I need to call him," I whispered. "I need answers." Daria was adamant. "You should gather information first. You're in shock right now. Call me if you need me. I'll come over, okay?" We hung up and I just sat there staring at the photo. Every breath felt like it might shatter me. My phone buzzed again and I jumped, maybe it was Connor. But no, just an email notification. With a trembling hand, I navigated to our text thread. His last message read, "Meeting ran late, probably back Thursday or Friday. Miss you, love you." The timestamp was from just 2 hours ago, 2 hours, while he was presumably on a beach, saying, "I do" to someone else. Tears burned my eyes. I tried to reason it out. Was he forced into some arranged marriage scenario? That was ridiculous. Or was it a vow renewal for some friend who just happened to look exactly like him? None of these mental gymnastics could erase the truth. I was staring at my husband in a tux, kissing a bride who wasn't me. Anger bubbled up. "Seriously, Connor, you think you can get away with this?" I muttered to the empty room. Then I realized I had about a million questions swirling in my head, but no one to ask. Connor was unreachable, and I sure as heck wasn't going to call the bride. I felt trapped in a nightmare with no exit door. I didn't sleep that night. I paced the apartment, flipping lights on and off, peering out the window at the empty street. Our wedding photos were still on the mantel, memories of a day I once thought was the happiest of my life. Now I felt sick just looking at them. How long had he been planning this second wedding? Why would he do it? And who was that woman? By sunrise, my eyes were swollen from crying. My phone showed 0 missed calls, 0 texts from him. Numbly, I got dressed for work, going through the motions like a robot. On the bus ride, I scrolled Christine's feed again, hoping the pictures were a mistake or had vanished. But they were still there, each snapshot driving a fresh nail into my heart. At the dental office, I tried to focus on patients, forcing smiles and cheery conversation. But inside, I was falling apart. During my lunch break, I called Daria again, whispering into the phone, "I feel like I'm in an alternate universe. He can't just marry someone else, right? We're still married. This is bigamy or something, isn't it?" She didn't know what to say. None of us did. That evening, I decided I'd confront him the moment he landed. No more hiding, no more pretending. But I didn't even know when or where he was flying back from. The next few days were torture. I waited for him to text or call, and he did, but each time it was more lies about how exhausting the business trip was, how he was stuck in meetings. I wanted to scream at him through the phone, "Where are you, you lying scumbag?" But I held back, determined to gather concrete proof before tipping him off. Then on Thursday night, something changed. He called me, sounding cheerful even. "Hey babe, got good news. I'm wrapping up early. Should be home tomorrow around lunchtime." My voice shook. "That's great. Can't wait," I lied, my hand clenching into a fist. "Everything okay? You sound weird," he asked. I forced a chuckle. "Just stressed from work. We'll talk when you get back." He ended the call with an "I love you," and I nearly threw my phone against the wall. Part of me still loved him too, at least the man I thought he was. But that man didn't exist anymore, if he ever did. I spent that night preparing, copying every screenshot I could, saving photos from Christine's Instagram, even messaging Christine in a panic. She hadn't replied yet. Maybe she was busy traveling. But I needed as much evidence as possible, because once Connor walked through that door, I knew I'd be confronting him with the ugliest truth imaginable. "I know what you did. And you'd better start talking." The next day felt like the longest day of my life. I kept checking the clock at work, my nerves on edge. Around noon, I hurried home, my stomach in knots. If Connor was telling the truth, he'd be back any minute. I rehearsed what I'd say, but the words felt clumsy in my mouth. "I saw your honeymoon photos. Who is she?" Part of me still held onto a sliver of hope. Maybe there was a bizarre misunderstanding. But that hope was fading fast. When I heard the key turn in the lock, my heart lurched. I stood in the living room, arms folded, every muscle tense. Connor walked in, rolling a small suitcase behind him, wearing his usual business casual attire. For a split second, I saw the face of the man I married, warm smile, tired eyes, hair slightly messy from travel. But then the memory of those photos hit me like a freight train, and my anger surged. He dropped his suitcase, opened his arms for a hug. "Hey babe, missed you." I didn't move. "How was Texas?" I asked, my tone cold. He blinked, confusion flashing across his face. "Long, meetings ran over, I'm beat." He laughed nervously, probably sensing the tension. "You okay?" "Just peachy," I muttered, forcing a tight smile. "So, did you bring back any souvenirs from your trip?" He frowned, setting his jacket on the couch. Not really. Why the third degree?" I pulled out my phone, my hand trembling with rage. "Does this look like Texas to you?" I showed him the screenshot of him on a sandy beach, holding hands with that mystery bride, flower petals at their feet. My voice shook. "Explain this, Connor." His face drained of color in an instant. He stared at the photo, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "That's not what it looks like," he finally croaked, which, in my experience, always means it's exactly what it looks like. I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, really? Because it looks an awful lot like you, wearing a wedding ring next to some other woman in a wedding dress. Care to correct me?" He swallowed hard, eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route. "I can explain. Just let me think. My blood boiled. You can't talk your way out of this. I have more photos. I know you lied about where you were. You said you were in Texas, but clearly you were on a beach somewhere getting married. Or remarried, I guess? How is that even possible? Connor's hands shook as he ran them through his hair. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice cracking. I never meant for you to find out this way. It's complicated. Complicated? I felt my throat tight. You have a wife, me, and now you apparently have another. That's bigamy, Connor. It's not complicated, it's criminal. My anger hit a boiling point. How long has this been going on? He started packing, cheeks flushed with shame. About a year, he admitted finally. We met at a conference in LA. Her name is Naomi, she and I hit it off. I didn't plan to marry her so soon, but she got a job offer in another country, and it just happened fast. My jaw dropped. Happened fast? Like you accidentally slipped and said, I do. Did you think you could juggle 2 wives forever, or were you planning on telling me eventually? He winced. I was going to tell you, I didn't want to hurt you. His voice cracked on the last word, tears pooling in his eyes. I'm sorry, Tessa, I know this is unforgivable. I stared at him numb. So you thought deceiving me with fake business trips and a secret ceremony wouldn't hurt me? Are you for real right now? He reached out as if to touch my arm, but I backed away, revulsion tightening in my chest. I couldn't bear to let him come close. Stay there, I hissed. I can't even look at you. Tears slipped down my cheeks, a mixture of rage and heartbreak. Every time I blinked, I pictured him on that beach, gazing lovingly at someone else. I thought about all the times he'd kissed me goodbye, telling me, I'll be back soon, while already planning a different future behind my back. My stomach churned with disgust. I loved you, I said, voice shaking. I gave you everything. We built a life together, and you threw it away like it was nothing. I still love you, he protested, tears now running down his face. I never stopped. This with Naomi was a mistake that got out of hand. I let out a cold laugh. Love me? You can't love me and marry someone else. That's not how this works. I glared at him, a bitter taste in my mouth. Why did you do it? Couldn't you at least have divorced me first? He hung his head. I was scared of how you'd react, of losing everything. I swear I never wanted to hurt you. That's rich, I snapped. What did you think would happen? We'd all sit down to Thanksgiving dinner together, me on one side, her on the other. You're unbelievable. He dropped to the couch, burying his face in his hands. I stood there, fists clenched, heart hammering. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence felt suffocating. Finally, I cleared my throat. You need to leave, I said hoarsely. I don't care where you go, maybe go stay with your new wife, but you're not staying here. He looked up, panic in his eyes. Tessa, please, let me explain more, I can fix this. Fix this? My voice rose in disbelief. There is no fixing bigamy, Connor. This is beyond broken, just go. He began to protest again, but I stormed down the hall to our bedroom, slamming the door behind me. Pressing my ear to the door, I heard him packing, muttering to himself. Then I heard the suitcase wheels rolling as he dragged it back toward the front door. A moment later, the door opened and closed, and his footsteps faded down the hall. I sank onto the bed, shaking violently. Part of me felt relieved he was gone, but the other part was devastated. The life I'd trusted, the man I thought I knew, gone in a flash of betrayal. I wanted to scream, to break something, to lash out. Instead, I just cried, my face buried in a pillow, wondering if I'd ever feel normal again. Later that night, Daria showed up with takeout and sympathy. I'm staying with you tonight, she announced, letting herself in. She found me curled on the couch, eyes puffy from crying. We didn't talk much. She just wrapped me in a hug, letting me sob on her shoulder, occasionally whispering, I'm here, I've got you. At some point, I drifted off into a restless sleep, haunted by images of Connor kissing another woman under sunny skies. By morning, the weight of the situation hit me all over again. My husband was married to someone else, a brand new wife, and I was left with a shattered heart, a legal mess, and a million questions. How had I been so blind? And what was I supposed to do next? Pretend it never happened? Sue him? Confront the other wife? All I knew for sure was that my life had changed forever, in the ugliest way possible. And I wasn't sure if I had the strength to face the storm that was coming. I woke up the next day with puffy eyes and a throbbing headache. Daria was still asleep on the couch, snoring softly. For a moment, in that hazy space between sleep and reality, I forgot everything. Then the realization slammed into me. Connor was gone. He'd married someone else, leaving me with a gaping hole where my marriage used to be. I forced myself to get up. The sun was barely peeking through the blinds. My eyes drifted to the shelf where our wedding photo used to sit. I'd hidden it in a drawer last night, unable to bear its mocking presence. A swirl of anger and grief twisted in my chest. Why me? Why us? In the kitchen, I quietly boiled water for coffee, trying not to wake Daria. My mind replayed yesterday's confrontation, Connor's stricken face, his useless apologies, the way he admitted he'd been seeing Naomi for a year. I still couldn't wrap my head around it. How do you go from exchanging vows with one woman to planning a second ceremony with another? Daria stirred and joined me, her hair a messy halo around her head. She squeezed my shoulder. You sleep at all? I shrugged. A little. Mostly I just lay there, wishing this was a bad dream. She opened a cabinet, rummaging for mugs. What's the plan now? You want to file a police report or something? Because this is literally bigamy. The word stung. I don't know, I guess I'll need a lawyer, right? To see what my rights are. My voice quivered. I'd never imagined I'd be in a legal mess with my own husband. Daria poured coffee into 2 mugs, handing one to me. Definitely a lawyer, and you might want to talk to Connor again, like a calm conversation. Figure out if he's going to fight you on anything. Finances, property, who gets the cat? She paused. Wait, you guys don't have a cat, right? Despite everything, I let out a shaky laugh. No cat, but we do share a lease on this apartment. My stomach twisted. He told me to sign it alone last time we renewed, but I insisted we both be on it. Now I'm glad I did. Daria took a sip of coffee, her expression thoughtful. Why would he want you to sign it alone? I shrugged, a cold realization creeping up my spine. Probably so he could bail whenever he wanted, no strings attached. Maybe he was already plotting this double life. We sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of that sink in. Eventually, she offered, Listen, if you need me to call a lawyer friend, I can. My boss's wife might know someone. I felt a rush of gratitude. That would help. I have no clue where to start. While Daria scrolled through her phone, I stared at mine, willing it to buzz with a message from Connor explaining this was all a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew that message would never come. Instead, I got a random ping from Instagram. Someone had tagged me in a post. My heart lurched. Was it more wedding photos? I opened the app, half holding my breath. It wasn't wedding photos, just an old college friend tagging me in a throwback. But the jolt of panic reminded me I was living a new, harsh reality. Anytime I went online, I could stumble across more evidence of Connor's betrayal. Let's do something, Daria suggested. Go for a walk, grab breakfast, get your mind out of this apartment for a bit. I knew she was right. I needed air, somewhere to clear my head. So we threw on jackets and stepped outside, the crisp Seattle morning hitting my face. I felt fragile, like a raw nerve exposed to the elements. But as we walked through the neighborhood, something inside me began to solidify, a quiet resolve. If Connor thought he could double-cross me and just move on, he was in for a shock. At a nearby cafe, we sipped lattes and I spilled all my worries. What if Naomi doesn't even know about me? She could be an innocent victim, too. Connor might have lied to her, saying he was single or divorced. Should I try to contact her? Daria mulled that over. That's tricky. If she's clueless, it'll devastate her. But if she's complicit, she might lash out. Are you sure you're ready for that drama? I wasn't sure about anything. But imagining Naomi standing on that beach, all smiles, made my stomach churn. Did she realize she was marrying a married man? Or had he fed her a story about being single and free? The thought of Connor weaving elaborate lies to both of us made my blood boil. We spent the rest of the morning discussing my options, everything from filing for an annulment to pressing charges. My head was spinning. I couldn't believe I was in this position, like some real-life soap opera star. But the harsh truth stared back at me every time I closed my eyes. My husband, the man who once vowed to be honest and true, had married someone else while still married to me. Later that day, Daria headed home, promising to call me with any lawyer leads. I trudged back to the apartment, exhaustion weighing on me. The second I walked in, I noticed Connor's suitcase was gone from the corner and I realized I'd let him pack some clothes, but the rest of his stuff was still here, our shared photos, his computer, random items. It felt like a violation that he could disappear yet still clutter my space. On a whim, I decided to check our bedroom drawers. Maybe I'd find some clue about how long he'd been plotting this. Sure enough, rummaging through one of his drawers, I discovered a hidden folder with receipts, plane tickets to various beach destinations, hotel reservations, some in his name, some in a different name. My heart pounded. Was Jacob Smith an alias, or was he forging documents? One receipt was for a high-end resort in the Caribbean, dated 6 months ago. I sank onto the bed, shaking. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. He'd been traveling, probably with Naomi, for months. My entire marriage was built on lies. A wave of nausea hit me, and I rushed to the bathroom, barely making it in time. Tears stung my eyes as I heaved, my body reacting to the betrayal in the only way it could. After splashing water on my face, I grabbed my phone and texted Connor in a fury. "Found your stash of receipts. Care to explain your fake name? You owe me the truth." Then I waited. Minutes ticked by, then an hour. Nothing. By evening, the sun set behind the skyline, and I was left in darkness, anger simmering in my veins. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. I snatched it up. Connor. My heart hammered as I tapped the call button, bracing for his excuses. "Tessa," he began, his voice subdued. "Look, I know you're furious. I don't blame you. The receipts you found, it's complicated. Naomi and I have traveled to a few places, yes. And I sometimes used a fake name so it wouldn't trace back to me. I was scared you'd find out." I grit my teeth. Well, surprise, I found out anyway. Why Connor? Why her? Why do this at all? He let out a shaky breath. "Naomi and I connected in a way I never expected. It wasn't supposed to become this serious. But then she got that job offer overseas, and she wanted commitment before moving. I panicked. I married her on impulse. I know it sounds insane." "You think," my voice dripped with sarcasm. "Did you tell her about me at any point?" He paused, the silence so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally, he mumbled, "I told her we were separated." I let out a barking laugh. "Oh, separated? Good to know. So I'm just the clueless wife who thinks her marriage is fine. That's a new definition of separated." He started to apologize again, but I cut him off. "Save it. I'm hearing a lawyer. Don't come near me or this apartment unless it's for legal matters. I want you gone." "Tessa," he pleaded, "please, can we just talk in person? Maybe we can fix." I hung up, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Tears spilled down my cheeks, but the anger inside me was fiercer than ever. There would be no fixing a man who'd led a double life for a year and married another woman. If he was truly this heartless, I wanted nothing more to do with him. That night, I watched random shows on TV, volume cranked high, just to drown out my racing thoughts. But every few minutes, the ache returned, the tearful question, how could he do this to me? I tried to imagine what it felt like for Naomi. Did she really believe Connor was single, or was she co-conspiring in this charade? I felt stuck in a maze of lies, uncertain which path led to truth, or if there even was one. But one thing was clear. My old life was gone, replaced by a nightmare I had no idea how to escape. The only option was to move forward, one painful step at a time, and hope I'd find some sense of justice, or at least closure on the other side. I spent the next few days in a fog of paperwork, angry phone calls, and restless nights. I managed to get a referral to a divorce attorney, a sharp-tongued woman named Martina who had zero patience for liars. In our first meeting, she stared at me over the rim of her glasses and said, "Let me get this straight. Your husband is currently married to you and another woman at the same time." I nodded, my throat tight. "Yes, I don't know if the other marriage is legally recognized, but he definitely had a ceremony." Martina clicked her pen, scribbling notes. "We might be dealing with criminal bigamy. Are you prepared to press charges?" My stomach churned. Did I really want Connor in jail? Part of me wanted him to suffer the consequences, but another part, the one that once loved him, felt conflicted. "I'm not sure," I whispered. "I mostly want out of this nightmare." She nodded. "Well, you have options. We can pursue an annulment, a standard divorce, or we can talk to the prosecutor's office about criminal charges. But first, you need to decide what you really want." As I left her office, my head spun with legal jargon. Annulment, bigamy, spousal rights. It felt unreal that I was in the middle of it. My phone vibrated with calls from unknown numbers, probably Connor, or maybe his new wife for all I knew. I ignored them. The only person I wanted to speak to was Daria, my lifeline through this chaos. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine, okay, two, and scrolled through social media. Half-hopping Naomi would post something that gave me more insight. I found her account private, of course. Her profile picture was a generic beach sunset. No mention of Connor, no sign of any wedding photos, but I noticed she had a few mutual followers with me, including Christine. The same Christine who'd posted the wedding shots. Anger simmered in my gut. Christine was a friend from college, but not a close one. She must have known the groom was Connor. There's no way she wouldn't recognize him. We'd hung out at reunions before. Was she complicit in hiding this from me? I shot Christine a direct message. Hey, can we talk about your recent post? I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. Then I waited, my heart pounding. Within minutes, she replied, Tessa, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were still together. Connor told us you two had split up ages ago. My mind reeled. Of course he did. How long have you known about their relationship? I typed, my pulse racing. Christine's response came slowly. They've been dating about a year. Connor told me you were out of the picture. He made it sound like you'd gone your separate ways. I honestly believed him. I only posted the wedding photos because I was asked to take pictures as a favor. If I'd known, I would have told you. Her words stung, but I couldn't exactly blame her for believing Connor's lies. I typed back, it's not your fault. I was just blindsided, that's all. Thanks for clarifying. After logging off, I slumped onto the couch, a hollow ache in my chest. He'd spun an entire story for these people, painting me as some ex-wife who was out of the picture. The sheer effort it took to maintain that charade, did he ever feel guilty? Did he stay awake at night, dreading the day I'd discover the truth? Later that night, my phone rang again from a private number. This time, I picked up, bracing myself. A soft, hesitant voice spoke on the other end. Tessa. I felt a jolt of adrenaline. Yes, who is this? It's Naomi, the voice answered quietly. My breath caught in my throat. The other woman, my husband's new wife. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she sighed shakily. Look, I'm sorry to call you like this. Connor's been acting weird ever since you two had that argument. He admitted you're still married, and I didn't know. He told me you'd divorced years ago. I squeezed my eyes shut, tears threatening. Well, that was a lie. I had no idea he was seeing anyone else, let alone marrying them. Her voice cracked. I swear, I wouldn't have gone through with any ceremony if I'd known. He told me this entire sob story about you leaving him, refusing to sign the divorce papers. He made himself sound like a victim. Heat flared in my chest. That's Connor's specialty, playing the victim. Naomi, I don't blame you for being duped, but you need to understand this is bigamy. He's broken the law, and he's broken both our hearts. She let out a trembling breath. I feel so stupid. I left my job, my apartment, everything to be with him. Now I'm stuck with a husband who isn't really my husband. My anger softened just a fraction. Naomi wasn't my enemy, she was another victim of his lies. I'm sorry, I whispered. I know how it feels to have your life upended, but what do we do now? Are you planning on staying with him? She paused, and I heard her sniffle. I honestly don't know. Part of me wants to run, but I'm pregnant. My heart nearly stopped. Pregnant? I repeated, my voice faint. She swallowed audibly. Yes, about 8 weeks. I just found out last week. I confronted him when I realized he was texting someone named Tessa. That's how he finally admitted you weren't really out of the picture. My legs felt weak. I sank into an armchair, heart hammering. Oh my God. This is, oh my God, Naomi, I'm so sorry. That complicates everything even more. She broke down, sobbing on the other end. I sat there, tears rolling down my own cheeks, feeling the weight of this new, horrible twist. Connor was expecting a child with the woman he'd secretly married. Meanwhile, I was left with a legal disaster and a shattered sense of trust. Eventually, Naomi's sobs quieted. She muttered, I don't know what to do, I'm terrified. He promised me stability, a family, all lies. A rush of empathy coursed through me. We were two strangers bound by the same man's deceit. I'm going after him legally, I admitted. For an annulment, maybe a criminal complaint. I can't let him walk away without consequences. Naomi sniffled. Do what you have to do, but please, can you keep me updated? I'm so lost. I hesitated, then agreed. We'll figure this out, one step at a time. After we hung up, I just sat there, staring at the wall. The betrayal was deep enough when I thought Connor had simply remarried. Now there was a baby involved. A part of me felt a surge of anger at Naomi, as if she'd stolen the future I once imagined with Connor. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized she wasn't stealing anything. Connor had orchestrated every lie, every vow. Naomi and I were both victims, trying to navigate the wreckage of his double life. The rest of the night, I was too numb to cry. My mind kept replaying Naomi's words. I'm pregnant. Connor's going to be a father who can't even be honest about how many wives he has. I couldn't fathom how a man so seemingly loving and supportive could stoop to such depths. Somewhere around midnight, I glanced at the wedding photo I'd shoved into a drawer. Memories of our own honeymoon, just 3 years ago, flooded my mind. The laughter, the toasts, the promises of forever. It was all a facade now, overshadowed by his betrayal. Looking back now I murmured to the empty room, thinking of all the times I missed tiny warning signs. But even if I had seen them, would it have made a difference? He was skilled at covering his tracks. My phone buzzed with another unknown call. I let it ring, not sure I could handle any more bombshells that night. Instead, I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breath. I didn't know how I'd survive the oncoming storm, divorce, potential criminal charges, a pregnant co-wife. But I knew I had to. Because if there was one thing I'd learned, it was that Connor's web of lies was bigger than I ever imagined. And as painful as it was, the only way out was through the truth, no matter how ugly it got. The next few weeks felt like wading through a swamp of legal documents, emotional meltdowns, and awkward phone calls with Naomi. She was the only one who truly understood the nightmare I was in, because she was living it too. We became unlikely allies, bonded by our shared betrayal. At first, it was tense. I mean, how do you casually chat with the woman who just married your husband? But gradually, we found a rhythm, mostly discussing our next steps against Connor. Meanwhile, Martina, my lawyer, worked overtime preparing a case. She believed we had grounds to annul my marriage based on bigamy, an ironclad reason to void the union. She also reminded me that pressing charges against Connor for bigamy was an option. Part of me craved that justice, but the legal system can be messy, and I was already exhausted. Still, I couldn't dismiss it entirely. Why should he get away with building 2 families? Naomi confided that she was debating moving back in with her parents. I can't stay in this apartment we got together, she said during one of our late-night calls. Everything reminds me of him, every piece of furniture, every framed photo. Her voice trembled with tears. And my parents will flip out when they learn I married a man who's still married to someone else. My heart ached for her. Despite the jealousy that flickered whenever I imagined her wedding ceremony, I couldn't deny she was also a victim. It might be best, I told her gently. At least they'll support you, and you can figure out your next move with the baby. She sniffled. Connor keeps calling me, begging me not to leave, swearing he'll fix everything. He even said he'd sign divorce papers with you if I just stay. But how can I trust him again? My chest tightened. Connor was still trying to manipulate her, just like he'd manipulated me. Listen, Naomi, I said quietly, even if he divorces me, that doesn't erase the fact that he lied to both of us. Do you really want to build a future on that foundation? She paused, then sighed. I guess not, but I'm terrified of being a single mom. Her voice broke again, and I felt a pang of sympathy. That was the cruel twist in all this. She was bound to him by a child, even if she walked away. Just when I thought I'd reached maximum stress capacity, Christine, the mutual friend who posted those wedding photos, messaged me. Hey Tessa, I'm so sorry to bother you again, but Connor's been hounding me to take down the pictures from my Instagram. He says it's causing major problems. I told him I refused unless you asked me to. Should I remove them? I stared at her text, anger brewing. Connor was trying to hide the evidence, maybe to protect himself from legal consequences. But those photos were my proof of his betrayal. I quickly typed back, keep them up. That's the only way I can confirm the date and details. If he threatens you, let me know. Christine replied with a thumbs up, adding, stay strong, we're all rooting for you. It was a small comfort in the chaos. That same night, Connor showed up at my apartment unannounced. I'd just come home from work, exhausted, when I heard frantic knocking on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there, shoulders slumped. My pulse spiked with anxiety. Against my better judgment, I opened the door a crack. "What do you want?" I asked, voice shaking. He looked awful, red-rimmed eyes, unkempt hair, the posture of a man defeated. "I just want to talk," he said softly. "Please, Tessa." Every instinct told me to slam the door, but part of me longed for an explanation, some closure. "Fine," I muttered, stepping aside, "but don't expect me to be nice." He followed me into the living room, glancing around as if expecting to see someone else. "Daria's not here?" he asked. I rolled my eyes. "No, she doesn't live here. Are you disappointed you won't get a lecture from her too?" He ignored my snark and sank onto the couch. I stood by the doorway, arms crossed, refusing to sit near him. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. "I know I've messed up beyond words. I hate myself for what I did to you, to Naomi." He trailed off, tears filling his eyes. For a moment, I felt a pang of the old compassion I used to have for him. But then I remembered the photos, the lies, the heartbreak. "Why are you here, Connor?" I demanded, my voice cold. He looked up, tears spilling over. "I want to make things right." A harsh laugh escaped my lips. "Make things right? You married another woman while married to me. There's no undo button for that." He cradled his head in his hands. "I'm willing to sign divorce papers to give you everything, our savings, the apartment, anything. Just, please, don't ruin my life with criminal charges. I'll end it with Naomi, too. I realize now this was a huge mistake." Shock and anger flared inside me. "So now you want to abandon Naomi, who's pregnant, by the way? Did you even know that?" His face went ashen. "Pregnant, she never told me." I shook my head, disgusted. "Of course she didn't. She's probably terrified. And here you are, scurrying back to me for a way out. You sicken me." He reached out, but I stepped back, clenching my fists. "Please, Tessa," he whispered. "Don't hand me over to the authorities. We can keep this quiet, end our marriage discreetly. I'll make sure you're financially secure." My chest burned with rage. "Oh, so this is about you avoiding jail time, right? It's not about my feelings or Naomi's or that unborn child. It's about saving your sorry hide." He swallowed, silent tears trailing down his cheeks. "I know how it looks, but I do care. I panicked. I love you, but I got swept up with Naomi. Now it's all spiraled out of control." My whole body trembled. "Get out," I croaked. "I can't look at you." He started to protest, but I stormed to the door, flinging it open. "Now," I yelled, tears hot on my cheeks. He stood, shuffling toward me with slumped shoulders. As he passed by, he whispered, "I'm sorry," and walked out. I slammed the door, locking it. My breath came in ragged gasps, and I realized I was sobbing. Anger, betrayal, sorrow, they all tangled in my chest, making it hard to breathe. I called Daria, voice shaking. He came over. He wants me to quietly divorce him and not press charges. Her outrage practically crackled through the phone. "Are you kidding me? That slimeball, if it were me, I'd nail him to the wall legally. But it's your call, Tessa." I stared at the floor, tears blurring my vision. I don't know if I have the energy for a court battle, but part of me wants to see him face real consequences. What he did, it's not just an affair, it's bigamy. Daria exhaled. "Whatever you decide, I'm behind you. Maybe talk to Martina about your options." After we hung up, I paced the apartment, trying to calm my racing heart. How was this my life? A month ago, I was a happily married woman, or so I thought. Now I was entangled in the kind of scandal you'd only see in tabloid headlines. As the clock ticked late into the night, I made a decision. I'd at least consult with Martina about pressing charges. Connor needed to understand that lying to two women and creating a fake marriage had real consequences, especially with a baby on the way. And if Naomi wanted to speak up, maybe we could show the authorities the extent of his deception. Exhaustion finally overtook me, and I fell into a fitful sleep. I dreamed of being on a beach, watching Connor and Naomi say their vows while I screamed, unheard from the sidelines. When I woke up, drenched in sweat, I knew I had to see this through to the end, no matter how painful. Because living in a lie was worse than any temporary pain of the truth. The next morning, I called Martina. "I'm ready to talk about the criminal route," I told her. "He can't just walk away like this." She replied with a firm, "Come by my office this afternoon, and we'll go over the evidence." So that's what I did, gathering all my screenshots, the wedding photos, receipts, even text exchanges from Naomi, who'd emailed me proof that Connor had lied about his marital status. It was surreal flipping through the documents, each one a stark reminder of how carefully he'd orchestrated this double life. Outside Martina's building, I paused, taking a shaky breath. I felt like I was standing at a crossroads. Keep it simple with a divorce or annulment, or press forward with bigamy charges, risking a long battle in court. My heart fluttered with anxiety. But then I pictured Connor on my doorstep, pleading with me to keep it quiet, offering hush money like I was some inconvenient secret. Anger flared, fueling my resolve. I stepped inside, head high, a folder of damning evidence tucked under my arm. No more illusions, no more pity. If he wanted to lead a double life, he'd have to face the fallout. And I was done protecting him from the consequences of his own twisted lies. I walked into Martina's office, clutching the folder like it was my life raft. She ushered me into a small conference room, and I set everything on the table. Screenshots from social media, wedding photos, texts from Naomi, receipts for tropical trips under a fake name. Martina's eyebrows shot up as she flipped through each piece of evidence. "Well," she said, tapping a finger on the wedding photo, "this is about as open and shut a case of bigamy as I've ever seen. I can draft the complaint and submit it to the local district attorney. That doesn't guarantee they'll prosecute, but it's a strong possibility." My heart pounded, and if they do prosecute? She gave a brisk nod. Connor could face fines, even jail time. It depends on the judge, the plea bargain, lots of variables. You have the right to push for it or step back, so it comes down to what you want to achieve. I slumped in my chair, torn. I need him to understand what he's done, but I also don't know if I can handle a year of court appearances. Martina leaned forward. "I get it. My advice? Let's file, see if the DA picks it up. Often, cases like these settle before trial. Your annulment is basically a done deal. He can't fight that with this evidence. But pressing criminal charges might be the leverage you need to ensure he cooperates fully, especially with finances or compensation for emotional damages." I nodded slowly. The thought of dragging him into a criminal trial scared me, but the idea of letting him walk away scot-free felt worse. "Okay, let's move forward," I said, voice trembling with determination. She nodded, collecting the folder. "I'll keep you posted." That was the beginning of a whirlwind. Within a week, Martina had formally filed the annulment paperwork. We also sent the bigamy complaint to the DA's office. Connor found out soon enough. My phone exploded with texts, calls, voicemails. Some were angry, some apologetic, all desperate. I ignored them, forwarding everything to Martina. The tension was excruciating, but I reminded myself I had no choice if I wanted closure. Naomi called me in a panic 2 days later. "Connor is furious at me," she said shakily. "He thinks I pushed you to press charges. I didn't, I swear." I swallowed hard, sympathy swirling with bitterness. "I know you didn't. He's just lashing out, trying to blame someone." She sniffled. "He's threatening to cut me off financially if I testify to the DA, but I already told them I'd give a statement. Tessa, I'm really scared." My gut twisted. She was pregnant, stressed, alone. "I'm sorry," I murmured. "He's probably just bluffing. He can't legally dodge child support no matter what, but I get that it's terrifying." Naomi hesitated. "I've been thinking about something," she whispered. "I'm not even sure this baby is Connor." My breath caught. "What, but you said." She exhaled shakily. "I had a brief fling before I met him. We broke it off when I got serious with Connor. But the math is kind of fuzzy. I haven't told him because he's acting so unstable. I'm not sure if a paternity test will confirm he's the father." My mind reeled. This was the last thing I expected. A bizarre spark of relief darted through me, quickly replaced by concern. "Does that change how you feel about pressing charges?" She let out a humorless laugh. "No, Connor still lied, married me illegally. I just feel guilty that I might have lied too, unintentionally." I stared at the phone, trying to process this twist. "You have to do what's right for you and the baby," I managed, though my head was spinning. If the child was Connor, that meant his second marriage was built on an even bigger lie than I thought. How much more complicated could this get? A week later, the DA's office called Martina. They were reviewing the case. I tried to go to work, act normal around my dental patients, but my mind stayed locked on the fiasco. Daria took me out for coffee every few days, letting me vent my frustrations. "You're stronger than you realize," she'd say, patting my hand. At night, though, the doubts crept in. Sometimes I'd picture Connor behind bars and wonder if I was being cruel. Other times, I'd see him wearing that white tux on the beach, a triumphant grin on his face, and anger would burn in my veins all over again. One stormy afternoon, Connor showed up yet again, this time while I was home alone. I opened the door to see him drenched from the rain, eyes red. Before I could tell him to leave, he blurted, "I'm sorry, just hear me out." My stomach lurched, but I stepped aside. He was soaked, shivering. I motioned for him to sit, not out of kindness, but so he'd say his piece quickly and go. He collapsed onto the couch, water dripping from his jacket. "I found out Naomi might be pregnant with someone else's baby," he said, voice hollow. "She told me yesterday. It's all falling apart, Tessa." I blinked, a cocktail of emotions swirling, surprise, pity, a hint of vindication. "Now you know how it feels to be lied to about something life-altering." He sighed, dropping his gaze. "I deserve that. I've made every mistake possible." Silence hung between us, broken only by the rain pounding against the windows. Finally, he lifted his head. "I understand if you hate me, but I'm begging you not to push the criminal charges. We can settle the annulment, and I'll pay whatever settlement. I just can't handle jail on top of everything else." I studied him, noticing the shadows under his eyes, the tremor in his hands. This wasn't the self-assured Connor I married, it was a hollow shell. The anger in me flared. I remembered all the nights I cried, the humiliation, the heartbreak. Yet the pity tugged, too. "Connor," I began, swallowing a lump in my throat, "I'm not doing this out of spite. You lied to 2 women, manipulated us, broke the law. Actions have consequences." He nodded, tears brimming. "I know, but can you at least talk to your lawyer about a deal? Something that avoids prison time? I'll own my mistakes, but please don't ruin my life completely." My chest tightened with conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted him to face full punishment, prison, fines, shame. Another part recognized that all these tangled threads, Naomi's pregnancy, the bigamy charges, would follow me too, dragging me through a trial. I rubbed my temples, exhausted. "I'll talk to Martina," I said quietly, "but I'm not promising anything. It's up to the DA." He exhaled, tears slipping down his cheeks. "Thank you," he whispered. Then, as if remembering something, he fumbled in his pocket and held out a small key. "This is for our storage unit. Everything inside, furniture, old memories, I want you to have it. I don't deserve a piece of our past anymore." I stared at the key, my throat tightening. Our storage unit held boxes of mementos, including wedding keepsakes. It felt like he was handing over the final remnants of our marriage. With a shaky hand, I took it. "Fine," I murmured. "Leave it by the door." He nodded, set the key on the table, then rose to go. Before he reached the door, he turned back, eyes flicking over me with sorrow. "I loved you, Tessa," he said softly. "I really did. I lost my way." I didn't respond, didn't trust myself to speak without either sobbing or shouting. As the door closed behind him, I sank onto a chair, a fresh wave of tears spilling over. I hated how part of me still cared, even after everything. A few days later, Martina called with an update. The DA's office wanted to discuss a plea deal if Connor admitted to the bigamy charges and cooperated fully with the annulment. They might reduce or suspend a sentence if he paid fines and restitution. "It's not guaranteed, but it's likely," Martina said. Relief and anxiety mingled in my stomach. This meant no lengthy trial, but also no satisfying public reckoning. Still, maybe it was for the best. I gave Martina the go-ahead to negotiate. Naomi, meanwhile, decided to stay with her parents. She scheduled a paternity test for the baby. "I can't keep living in that apartment with reminders of him," she told me over the phone. "I'm done with his lies." I supported her choice, knowing how it felt to be trapped in a space filled with false memories. We decided to meet for lunch before she moved, a final attempt to make peace with everything. When we met at a small cafe, the tension was evident. 2 women Connor had deceived, facing each other over soup and sandwiches. But surprisingly, we managed to share a moment of understanding. I'm sorry you got dragged into this, I told her quietly, stirring my tea. He was good at pretending to be someone he was. She gave a sad smile. I'm sorry, too. I thought you were an ex who refused to let go. I never imagined he was actually juggling 2 marriages. We talked about our families, our dreams. She had planned to travel for work, maybe live abroad. Now she was facing single motherhood, or at least uncertainty. Part of me wanted to resent her, but I couldn't. Not after seeing how broken and lost she was, just like me. When we parted, she gave me a timid hug. Let's never let a man's lies pit us against each other again, she said, voice trembling. I agreed, tears stinging my eyes. That evening, Martina called again. A plea deal was on the table. Connor would plead guilty to bigamy but avoid jail if he paid a substantial fine, complied with an immediate annulment, and covered my legal fees plus a modest settlement. It's your decision if we accept, she said, but it's a decent outcome and it spares you a trial. I took a shaky breath, imagining a future free from endless court proceedings, free from the weight of Connor's lies. Let's do it, I said finally. I just want it over. We signed the deal a week later. Connor showed up with his lawyer, avoiding my gaze. The judge asked him a series of questions, confirming he understood the charges. He mumbled guilty in a voice barely above a whisper. I felt a strange sense of relief, watching him finally admit, in a court of law, that he'd lied. The annulment was finalized. In the eyes of the state, our marriage never legally existed. I walked out of the courthouse feeling oddly weightless, liberated, but also hollow. Naomi didn't attend the hearing, but she texted me. He signed. I guess that's it. I'm sorry for everything. The paternity test was pending. I wished her well, knowing she had her own battle ahead. In the weeks that followed, I sorted through the storage unit he'd given me. Opening boxes was like peeling back layers of a life that no longer belonged to me. Photos of us smiling on vacations, handwritten letters from the early days of dating, receipts from romantic dinners. My chest ached with each discovery. But slowly, I found the courage to let go, shredding old mementos, donating items that no longer held meaning. It was a painful catharsis. Daria continued to be my rock. When I was tempted to drown in self-pity, she'd drag me out for coffee or a hike, reminding me there was a whole world beyond Connor's betrayal. I started seeing a therapist, too, working through the trauma of discovering a double life. It wasn't easy. Some days I'd wake up shaking with anger, others with crushing sadness. But each week, I felt a bit stronger, a bit more like I could claim my life again. A month after the plea deal, I got a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a simple silver bracelet I recognized immediately. It was a gift I'd given Connor on our 2nd anniversary, engraved with both our initials. Attached was a note in shaky handwriting. I'm sorry. See, I stared at it, tears in my eyes. Then, with trembling fingers, I dropped it into a donation box. Some things just weren't mine to carry anymore. Naomi texted once more, weeks later, to say the paternity test showed the baby was Connor's. He knows now, she wrote. He still offered to help financially, but I declined. I'm going to do this on my own. I felt relief for her, weirdly enough. At least she wouldn't be tied to him forever. Some lessons cost you everything you once thought was secure, she added, echoing a line I once shared with her in conversation. But maybe we'll both be stronger for it. I didn't reply immediately, tears blurring my eyes. She was right. We'd both lost illusions and gained painful clarity. Looking back now, I see that Connor's betrayal forced me to confront my own capacity for resilience. I learned that love without honesty is a hollow promise, and that no one's life is guaranteed to be stable forever. You can only trust yourself and hope those you love won't shatter that trust. Months later, I moved out of the old apartment, starting fresh in a new place. I kept a single photo of Connor and me tucked away in a drawer, not for nostalgia, but as a reminder of how far I'd come. Sometimes I still ache for the naive version of me who believed in a perfect marriage, but I also feel grateful to have survived the storm. What Connor did was unforgivable, but as time passed, my anger gave way to a cautious peace. I no longer cried at random intervals or woke up in cold sweats. I built a new life, reconnected with friends, took up painting to channel my emotions. And when I scrolled through social media, I no longer feared glimpsing that horrifying second wedding. Christine had archived the photos after all was said and done, out of respect for me. I was finally free from daily reminders. If there's a moral to be found in this twisted tale, it's that truth eventually claws its way to the surface. no matter how carefully buried. And for me, that truth was painful but liberating. I discovered a strength in myself I never knew existed, a resolve to protect my heart and define my own worth. As for Connor, last I heard, he moved out of state, presumably to start over once again. The memory of his second wedding stings sometimes, but it's also a reminder that illusions can break in an instant. In a world where someone can pretend to be everything you ever wanted, real love requires transparency, even when it's uncomfortable. And now, telling my story, I feel an odd sense of closure. This is the end of one chapter and the beginning of something new. A life where I refuse to settle for half-truths, where my eyes are open and I trust my instincts. Because the biggest lesson I learned is that love without honesty isn't really love at all. And once you accept that, no surprise honeymoon can ever blindside you again.